Sophia Turner signed the marriage certificate with a hand that barely shook. 28 years old, and she was trading her freedom for her father's mistakes. $200,000 in debt to men who broke kneecaps as business strategy. Men who had already visited her childhood home twice, leaving broken furniture and terror in their wake. The registry office in Lower Manhattan smelled like old paper and desperation. Her father stood behind her, guilt etched into every line of his weathered face. Her younger sister Ashley gripped her hand so tightly it hurt. "You don't have to do this," Ashley whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "We'll find another way." But there was no other way. Sophia had exhausted every option over 6 sleepless months. Loans denied. Crowdfunding campaigns that barely raised $3,000. The predatory interest kept climbing, and the men kept coming. Then Anthony Colombo made an offer through intermediaries. Marriage in exchange for debt forgiveness. Clean slate. No questions asked. Sophia had researched him obsessively. 34 years old, head of one of New York's most powerful organized crime families. Photographs showed a devastatingly handsome man with dark hair, sharp jaw, and eyes that seemed to catalog everything they saw. Rumors swirled about his ruthlessness, his intelligence, his absolute control over an empire built on fear and loyalty. She expected a monster. She got something far more complicated. Anthony Colombo stood across from her now, signing his own portion of documents with elegant precision. He wore a charcoal suit tailored to perfection. White shirt open at the collar. No tie. Expensive watch caught the light. Everything about him screamed power and money and danger. But when he looked at her, his expression held something unexpected. Curiosity. Maybe even gentleness. "The debt is cleared," he said quietly, handing papers to his lawyer. His voice was smooth, faintly accented. "Your father and sister will not be contacted again." "Thank you," Sophia managed. The words felt hollow. "We should go." He offered his hand. "Your belongings have already been moved to the penthouse." Sophia's stomach dropped. She had known this moment was coming, but facing it felt surreal. She hugged Ashley fiercely, whispered promises to call, to visit, to somehow make this bearable. Her father couldn't meet her eyes. The shame was eating him alive. The drive to Anthony's penthouse passed in silence. Sophia stared out the window of the black car, watching her old life disappear behind tinted glass. The driver never spoke. The city blurred past. The penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a midtown tower. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Central Park. Marble floors reflected soft lighting. Modern furniture in blacks and grays filled spaces that felt both luxurious and oddly impersonal. "Your room is down that hallway," Anthony said, gesturing left. "Master suite is opposite direction. You have complete privacy." Sophia blinked. "Separate rooms? This is a business arrangement." His dark eyes held hers. "I will not touch you without invitation. You are safe here." Something loosened in her chest. She had prepared herself for so much worse. "The kitchen is fully stocked. Housekeeper comes Mondays and Thursdays. If you need anything, ask." He pulled a phone from his pocket, typed quickly, then showed her the screen. "My personal number. Use it." "Okay." Her voice came out smaller than intended. He studied her for a long moment. "You look exhausted. Rest. We can discuss details tomorrow." Sophia retreated to her room, found her belongings neatly unpacked in a space 3 times the size of her old apartment. Luxury sheets. Enormous bathroom. Closet bigger than her childhood bedroom. She sat on the edge of the bed and cried silently into her hands. The first month passed in careful distance. Anthony left early for meetings, returned late. They saw each other mostly at breakfast, where he read newspapers in Italian, and she picked at food she barely tasted. He never demanded anything, never invaded her space, never made her feel like property. Slowly, the fear began to fade, replaced by something stranger, curiosity. One evening, she found him in the living room watching an old Italian film. Black and white images flickered across a massive screen. "Do you mind if I watch?" she asked from the doorway. He glanced up, surprise crossing his features. "Please." She sat on the opposite end of the long sofa. The film had subtitles. A love story set in post-war Rome. Beautiful cinematography and tragic romance. My grandmother loved this film, Anthony said during a quiet scene. She made me watch it dozens of times as a child. It's beautiful, Sophia admitted. She raised me after my mother died. His voice softened with memory. Taught me that strength and gentleness are not opposites. Sophia looked at him properly for the first time in weeks. Saw past the intimidating exterior to something more human underneath. They began talking. Small conversations that stretched longer each night. He told her about growing up in Brooklyn, learning his family's business, the weight of responsibility he carried. She told him about her childhood in upstate New York, her dreams of becoming a teacher, the betrayal she felt toward her father's gambling addiction. "You are angry with him," Anthony observed one night over dinner he had cooked himself, pasta carbonara made from scratch. "He destroyed our lives," Sophia said bitterly. "Ashley had to drop out of college. We lost the house. And I'm here because he couldn't stop throwing money at card tables. Addiction is a disease." Anthony's tone held no judgment. "It does not excuse his actions, but perhaps understanding helps with forgiveness. Do you forgive easily?" His expression darkened. "No, but I am learning." The second month brought unexpected comfort. Anthony started asking her opinion on small things. What to order for dinner, which film to watch, whether the new art piece in the hallway was pretentious or interesting. She started leaving her room more, reading in the living room while he worked on his laptop, joining him for meals without the heavy silence. One afternoon, she found him cooking again. This time, he invited her to help. "My grandmother would say a woman who cannot make proper pasta is missing a life skill," he teased gently, teaching her to knead dough with precise pressure. "And what would she say about men who trap women in business arrangements?" Sophia shot back, but with a hint of humor. "That I am a fool who does not know how to properly court a beautiful woman." He said it lightly, but his eyes held hers a beat too long. The air between them shifted. By month 3, the attraction became impossible to ignore. Sophia found herself noticing everything about him. The way his hair fell across his forehead when he was concentrating. The warmth of his laugh when something genuinely amused him. How his hands moved with confidence and precision, whether signing documents or chopping vegetables. She caught him watching her too. Quick glances when he thought she was distracted. His jaw tightening when she wore certain dresses. The way he always positioned himself between her and the door. Protective instinct she pretended not to notice. Month 4 brought the charity gala. A business obligation Anthony initially planned to attend alone. "Come with me," he said over breakfast. Not a command, an invitation. "I don't have anything appropriate to wear. That has been arranged." He slid a business card across the table. "Appointment at 2. Choose whatever you like." The boutique was exclusive, expensive, overwhelming. But the dress she selected was burgundy silk that draped elegantly without being overtly sexual. When Anthony saw her that evening, something flickered in his dark eyes that made her pulse race. The gala was everything she expected. Wealthy people in designer clothes making small talk about investments and vacation homes. But Anthony kept her close, his hand resting lightly on the small of her back, introducing her simply as Sophia, never explaining the arrangement. "You are nervous," he murmured during a slow dance. "Everyone is staring. Let them." His hand splayed wider against her spine. "You belong here as much as anyone. Because I'm your wife on paper? Because you are brilliant and kind and stronger than most people in this room." His voice dropped lower. "The paper means nothing. You matter." Sophia looked up at him. Really looked. Saw the sincerity in his expression. The carefully controlled desire he was working hard to suppress. When they returned to the penthouse that night, neither moved toward their separate rooms. They stood in the dim living room, city lights creating shadows across Anthony's face. "I should let you rest," he said, but made no move to leave. "I'm not tired." The distance between them felt charged, dangerous, inevitable. Sophia. Her name on his lips sounded like a confession. "If I kiss you now, everything changes. Maybe I want it to change." He closed the space between them in one fluid movement. His hand cupped her jaw with surprising gentleness. His thumb brushed across her lower lip. "Are you certain?" Instead of answering, she kissed him. The kiss was fire and tenderness. months of tension exploding into desperate contact. His other hand threaded through her hair. She gripped the front of his shirt. They stumbled toward his room, shedding clothes between heated kisses and whispered confirmations. That night, Sophia discovered that Anthony Colombo was as controlled and attentive in intimacy as he was in everything else. He worshipped her body like something precious, learned what made her gasp and arch and moan his name. Afterward, they lay tangled in expensive sheets, her head on his chest, his fingers tracing idle patterns on her shoulder. "This was not part of the arrangement," he said quietly. "No." She pressed a kiss to his sternum. "Is that a problem?" "The opposite." He tilted her face up to meet his eyes. "But you should know that what I feel is not casual. I do not do anything by half measures." "Neither do I." The following weeks blurred together in a haze of growing intimacy. They talked for hours, made love with increasing familiarity and passion, laughed at inside jokes, cooked meals together. She started referring to the penthouse as home without thinking about it. Month 6 arrived with autumn colors in Central Park, and Sophia realizing she was in love with her arranged husband. She was also pregnant. The pharmacy test showed 2 pink lines, then another, then a third to be certain. She sat on the bathroom floor, hands shaking, emotions rioting. Pregnant. With twins, according to the doctor she visited secretly. Twin boys growing inside her. Still early enough to hide, but real enough to make her knees go weak. She planned to tell Anthony that evening. Imagined his reaction. Maybe surprise, but hopefully joy. They could be a real family. Turn this arrangement into something genuine and permanent. She returned to the penthouse humming softly, hands unconsciously resting on the faint swell she could still hide beneath her clothes. Then she heard voices from downstairs. Anthony's office was usually off-limits, but the door stood ajar. She moved closer, intending to announce her presence. "Please," a man's voice begged, thick with terror. "I have family. Kids, please. You stole from me." Anthony's voice was cold, unrecognizable. "You knew the consequences. I'll pay it back. Every dollar. I swear on my children's lives. Your children will learn what happens when men break their word." The sound that followed made Sophia's blood turn to ice. A gunshot, muffled but unmistakable. Then another. She clapped a hand over her mouth to stifle her gasp. Pressed herself against the hallway wall, heart hammering violently. Through the cracked door, she saw Anthony, suit jacket removed, white shirt now stained with dark spots, gun held loosely in one hand. His expression was utterly calm as he looked down at whatever lay on the floor beyond her line of sight. "Clean this up," he said to someone else in the room. "Make sure his family gets the message." Sophia backed away slowly, made it to her room, locked the door with trembling hands. This was who he really was. Not the man who cooked pasta and watched old films and made love to her with devastating tenderness. This was a killer. A man who executed people in his home office like it meant nothing. Her hands went to her stomach. Twin boys who would grow up in this world, who would learn that power came through violence, who would inherit an empire built on blood and fear. She couldn't do it, couldn't raise children here, couldn't let them become what their father was. Sophia packed a single bag with shaking hands, took the cash she had been quietly saving from the household funds, left her phone behind because she knew it could be traced. At 3 a.m, while Anthony slept, she wrote a letter with tears blurring her vision. "I cannot raise our children in a world of death. Forgive me. Sophia." She left it on her pillow and walked out of the penthouse into the cold October night. The bus station was nearly empty. She bought a ticket to Portland, Oregon, as far from New York as she could get while staying in the continental United States. As the bus pulled away from the city, Sophia pressed her hand to the window, watched the skyline disappear, felt her heart breaking even as she knew this was the only choice. She was 28 years old, pregnant with twins, and running from the only man she had ever truly loved. Because sometimes love was not sufficient when the cost was your children's souls. 3 years changed everything and nothing. Sophia Turner stood behind the counter of Storybook Corner, a small independent bookstore in downtown Portland that specialized in children's literature. Her hands moved automatically, scanning picture books and board books while her mind wandered to the daycare pickup schedule. Luca had art class today. Matteo needed his blue jacket because he refused to wear any other color lately. The twins were 3 years old now. 3 years of building a life from scratch in a city where nobody knew her real name or her past. 3 years of working double shifts to afford the cramped 2-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood that was safe enough. 3 years of looking over her shoulder, waiting for Anthony Colombo to find her. But he never came. Part of her wondered if he had even looked. Maybe the debt arrangement had been exactly what he claimed originally. A business transaction. Nothing more. Maybe she had imagined the depth of feeling between them, projected her own desperate need for connection onto a man who felt nothing. The door chime rang. Sophia glanced up with her practiced customer service smile. Her heart stopped. Anthony Colombo stood just inside the entrance, backlit by autumn sunlight streaming through the glass. He wore dark jeans and a black sweater, casual clothes that somehow made him look more dangerous rather than less. His hair was shorter than she remembered. His face was thinner, sharper angles emphasized by shadows under his eyes that spoke of too many sleepless nights. But those dark brown eyes were exactly the same, and they were locked directly on her. The book in Sophia's hands slipped from her grip, hitting the counter with a dull thud. "Hey, you okay?" Rachel, her coworker, touched her arm with concern. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Sophia couldn't speak, couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Anthony walked toward the counter with slow, deliberate steps. Every person in the store seemed to sense something wrong. Conversations died. Heads turned. He stopped 3 feet away, close enough that she could smell the faint scent of his cologne, the same one he had worn in New York, far enough that he wasn't crowding her. "Hello, Sophia." His voice was exactly as she remembered. Smooth, controlled, with that barely perceptible accent that made her name sound like music. "I don't know you," she whispered. "Please leave. We both know that's not true." He placed a photograph on the counter between them, face down. "But if you prefer to have this conversation here, in front of your colleagues, I can accommodate that." Rachel was staring now. 2 customers had stopped browsing to watch. Sophia's hands shook as she flipped the photograph. It showed 2 small boys with dark curly hair and brown eyes, laughing in a park. Luca and Matteo. Taken recently, maybe last week at the playground near their apartment. Cold fear washed through her. "There's a coffee shop 2 blocks north," Anthony said quietly. "Meet me there in 10 minutes, or I will wait here until your shift ends. Your choice." He turned and walked out before she could respond. Sophia grabbed the photo, shoved it in her apron pocket. "I need to take my break. Right now." Rachel frowned. "We have customers. Please. It's an emergency." She didn't wait for permission. Grabbed her coat and hurried out into the cool October air. Portland was gray and overcast, perpetually threatening rain without delivering. She walked quickly toward the coffee shop, mind racing. How had he found her? How long had he known? Why wait 3 years? And most terrifying of all, what did he want? The coffee shop was one of those aggressively Portland establishments with reclaimed wood tables and fair trade everything. Anthony sat in the back corner, 2 cups already on the table. He stood when she approached. Old-fashioned manners she had forgotten. "I didn't know what you drink anymore," he said, gesturing to the cups. "One is black coffee. The other is a latte with vanilla." The latte had been her order. 3 years ago, in a different lifetime. Sophia sat, wrapping her cold hands around the warm cup without drinking. "How did you find me? Does it matter?" "Yes." He leaned back in his chair, studying her with an intensity that made her want to disappear. "You were very careful. New name, cash only for the first 6 months, no social media, no contact with anyone from New York except your sister." Sophia's stomach dropped. "You've been watching Ashley?" "Monitoring, not watching. There's a difference." His tone held no apology. "She was the only connection you maintained. It took 18 months before she slipped and mentioned Portland in a phone conversation. Another year to narrow down your location. 6 more months to confirm. 3 years. Sophia's voice came out hollow. "You've known for 6 months and you're only showing up now? I wanted to be certain you were truly safe and stable before I disrupted your life." His jaw tightened. I am many things, Sophia, but I am not cruel without purpose. You're also a killer. The words burst out before she could stop them. I saw you. That night. The man in your office. I know. Anthony's expression didn't change. I found your letter. Read it approximately 1,000 times trying to understand. There's nothing to understand. I couldn't raise children in that world. Our children. He said it softly. But the possessive pronoun landed like a physical blow. Twin boys. Luca and Matteo. 3 years old. Luca is cautious and loves books. Matteo is bold and refuses to wear anything but blue lately. Tears burned Sophia's eyes. Don't. Don't what? Don't know my own sons? Don't care about the family you stole from me? I was protecting them. By raising them in a city 3,000 miles away? By working 60-hour weeks so you can afford an apartment in a neighborhood where I counted 4 drug deals happening within 2 blocks? His voice rose slightly, controlled anger bleeding through. By denying them a father who would give them everything? Everything except safety. Sophia's hands shook around the cup. Everything except a life where they don't learn that violence is how you solve problems. Anthony was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice had softened. The man you saw me kill that night was not innocent. He had stolen $300,000 from my organization and used that money to fund a human trafficking operation. He was selling children, Sophia. Children. She looked up sharply. I am not asking you to condone what I did, Anthony continued. I am asking you to understand that my world is not black and white. I have done terrible things. I will likely do terrible things again. But I have also protected people who had no other protection. I have stopped monsters who operated in shadows. And I have spent 3 years transforming my business so that my sons will inherit something cleaner than what I received. What are you talking about? He pulled out his phone, slid it across the table. The screen showed financial documents, legal filings, business registrations. I have divested from every illegal operation, sold territories to rivals, moved all assets into legitimate real estate and restaurant investments. I still have connections. I still have power, but I no longer profit from the worst of it. Sophia scrolled through the documents with numb fingers. It was real. All of it. Dated across the past 3 years. You did this because of what I wrote in the letter? I did this because you were right. Anthony's voice roughened with emotion. I did this because the woman I love told me she couldn't raise our children in my world. So I changed my world. The confession hung in the air between them. Anthony, I am not asking you to forgive me immediately, he interrupted. I am not asking you to come back to New York or resume our marriage. I am only asking for one thing. What? His dark eyes held hers with devastating honesty. Let me meet my sons. Sophia's breath caught. She had prepared for threats, for legal action, for him to take the boys by force. Not this quiet plea. I don't know, she whispered. I have respected your wishes for 3 years, Anthony said. I have stayed away even though every instinct demanded I come immediately. I have transformed everything about my life to be worthy of the family you took from me. Now I am asking you to give me a chance. Not as your husband, as their father. Before Sophia could respond, her phone alarm buzzed. Daycare pickup in 20 minutes. Anthony noticed her glance at the screen. You need to get the boys. Yes. May I come? No. Absolutely not. Sophia. He reached across the table, stopping just short of touching her hand. I am going to be part of their lives. We can do this cooperatively, or we can do this through lawyers and courts. I prefer cooperation. Is that a threat? It is reality. His expression was calm, but implacable. I will see my sons today, with your permission or without it. Sophia stood abruptly, chair scraping against the floor. You can't just show up after 3 years and demand access. I am not demanding. I am requesting. There is a difference. Anthony stood as well. But make no mistake. I found you once. I know where you work, where you live, where the boys attend daycare. I know Luca's favorite book and Matteo's obsession with fire trucks. I know everything because I have been watching from a distance, respecting your space, waiting for the right moment. This is insane. This is fatherhood. His voice dropped lower. Go get our sons, Sophia. I will be waiting in the parking lot. And when you see me, when you see how they react to me, you will understand that biology is not the only connection we share." Sophia grabbed her coat and fled the coffee shop. Her mind spun as she drove across town to Little Sprouts daycare. What was she going to do? How could she explain this to 3-year-old boys who didn't know they had a father? She pulled into the familiar parking lot 15 minutes later, and her heart sank. Anthony's black SUV was already there, parked near the entrance. He leaned against it, arms crossed, waiting exactly as he had promised. Sophia parked as far away as possible, walked quickly toward the building entrance. Anthony didn't approach, just watched. Inside, the daycare smelled like paint and graham crackers. Luca and Matteo were in the art room, covered in finger paint and pure joy. Her heart squeezed at the sight of them. 3 years of raising them alone. 3 years of being everything they needed. "Mama!" Matteo spotted her first, running over with blue paint-covered hands. Luca followed more slowly, carrying a paper with careful crayon drawings. "Look what I made," Luca said shyly, holding up his artwork. Sophia knelt down, hugging them both despite the paint. "It's beautiful, baby. Both of you did such good work." They collected backpacks and jackets, Matteo chattering about snack time while Luca remained quiet and observant as always. Sophia's hands shook as she signed them out. The moment they stepped outside, Luca froze. "Mama," he whispered, pressing against her leg. "Who's that man?" Matteo, bold as always, stared openly at Anthony. "He's really tall." Anthony straightened from where he leaned against the SUV. Even from 30 feet away, Sophia could see the naked emotion on his face. Wonder, pain, desperate love for 2 boys he had never been allowed to touch. He didn't approach, didn't move at all, just looked at them with an expression that broke something inside Sophia's chest. Because she recognized that look. It was the same one she wore every morning when she checked on them sleeping. The same fierce protective love that had driven her to run in the first place. "Come on," Sophia said, guiding the boys toward her car. "Let's go home." "Is he coming too?" Matteo asked loudly. "No, sweetheart." But as Sophia buckled them into car seats, Anthony moved. Not toward them. Toward her. He stopped an arm's length away, close enough to speak quietly without the boys hearing. "They have my eyes," he said, voice rough with unshed tears. "I know. Luca looks exactly like I did at that age. Matteo has my mother's stubborn chin." Sophia's vision blurred. "Please don't make this harder. I need you to hear something." Anthony stepped closer, his presence overwhelming in the small parking lot. "No more running, Sophia. You ran once and I let you go because I understood your fear. But that grace period is over. Those are my sons. And whether you like it or not, whether you trust me or not, I will be in their lives. You can't force. I am not forcing anything. I am stating fact." His dark eyes burned into hers. "Tomorrow morning I will come to your apartment. I will meet them properly. I will begin building a relationship with my children. And you will allow this because deep down, you know they deserve a father who loves them." Sophia's breath came in short gasps. "I hate you." "No, you don't." He said it with absolute certainty. "You hate that you still love me. You hate that I found you. You hate that the life you built is about to change. But you do not hate me, darling. You never could." He turned and walked back to his SUV without waiting for a response. Sophia climbed into her car with shaking hands. In the rearview mirror, she watched Anthony stand beside his vehicle, watching them. Not following. Not threatening. Just watching his sons with the expression of a man who had found something he thought lost forever. "Mama, who was that?" Luca asked again as they drove away. Sophia met his innocent brown eyes in the mirror, eyes identical to his father's. "Someone who wants to meet you," she heard herself say. "Someone very important." That night, after the boys were asleep in their shared bedroom, Sophia sat on her couch in the dark apartment and finally let herself cry. 3 years of running. 3 years of building a life alone. 3 years of telling herself she had made the right choice. And Anthony Colombo had shattered it all in one afternoon with a photograph and a quiet demand. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Tomorrow, 10 in the morning. I will bring breakfast. Tell the boys whatever you think is appropriate. But this conversation is happening. Sophia stared at the message. Then, with trembling fingers, she typed back, "If you hurt them, I will destroy you." His response came immediately. "If I hurt them, I will let you." Anthony Colombo arrived at exactly 10 in the morning, carrying 2 bags from a local bakery and a leather briefcase that probably cost more than Sophia's monthly rent. She had been awake since 5, cleaning the already clean apartment, rehearsing what to tell the boys, changing her outfit 3 times before settling on jeans and a sweater that felt appropriately casual and defensive. The twins were eating cereal at their small kitchen table when the knock came. Matteo jumped up immediately, always eager for new experiences. Luca remained seated, watching with those careful brown eyes that missed nothing. Sophia opened the door. Anthony looked different in daylight streaming through her apartment windows. Still devastatingly handsome, but something about seeing him in her space felt surreal. He belonged in penthouses and exclusive restaurants, not her cramped 2-bedroom with mismatched furniture from thrift stores. "Good morning." He held up the bags. "I brought pastries, and these." He shifted the briefcase slightly. "Come in." Sophia stepped aside, heart hammering. Anthony entered slowly, taking in every detail of the small space. His gaze lingered on the twins' artwork taped to the refrigerator, the stack of library books on the coffee table, the worn couch where Sophia spent nights after double shifts, too exhausted to make it to bed. Luca and Matteo stared at the tall stranger with identical expressions of curiosity and wariness. Anthony set the bags on the counter, then did something Sophia didn't expect. He lowered himself to one knee, bringing his considerable height down to the boy's eye level. "Hello," he said gently. "My name is Anthony. What are your names?" Matteo spoke first, predictably. "I'm Matteo. That's Luca." He's shy, but I'm not. A hint of a smile touched Anthony's mouth. "It is very nice to meet you both. I brought breakfast if you would like some." "What kind?" Matteo demanded. "Chocolate croissants and apple turnovers." "I like chocolate," Matteo declared. Luca remained silent, studying Anthony with an intensity that was unnerving in a 3-year-old. Sophia intervened. "Boys, why don't you finish your cereal first? Then we can have a pastry." Anthony stood smoothly. "May we speak privately for a moment?" Sophia nodded toward the small bedroom that served as her own. Once inside with the door cracked so she could hear the boys, Anthony opened his briefcase and withdrew a folder. "Custody documents," he said without preamble. "My lawyer prepared them yesterday. Full joint custody with a phased schedule, Portland visits now, and longer New York blocks during holidays and summers once the boys were older." Sophia's stomach dropped. "You can't be serious." "I am completely serious. However," he held up a hand before she could interrupt. "I am not filing them." "Not yet. Then why show me?" "Because I want you to understand that I have legal recourse, and I am choosing not to use it." Anthony's dark eyes held hers. "I do not want a court battle, Sophia. I do not want to traumatize our sons with lawyers and custody evaluators. I want to build a relationship with them naturally, with your cooperation." "Why should I cooperate with you?" "Because it is the right thing to do. Because they deserve a father. And because whether you admit it or not, you know I am not the monster you convinced yourself I was 3 years ago." Sophia crossed her arms defensively. "You killed a man in your office. I executed a human trafficker after he was given multiple opportunities to surrender the children he had taken." Anthony's voice remained calm. "I am not asking you to approve of my methods. I am asking you to see the context." He withdrew another folder, this one thicker. "My business transformation. Every document is here. Sale of illegal operations, transfer of territories, investment portfolios in legitimate real estate and restaurant ventures. I have severed ties with every violent aspect of my former life." Sophia flipped through pages of legal documents, financial statements, property deeds. The scope was staggering. He had dismantled an empire and rebuilt it as something entirely different. "This must have cost you millions. It cost me approximately $200 million in lost revenue, and another $100 million in buyouts and settlements." He said it matter-of-factly. "But I gained something far more valuable. The possibility of being worthy of my family." Sophia looked up sharply. "We're not your family," Not anymore. Biologically, legally, and emotionally, you are. Anthony stepped closer. You can deny it all you want. You can tell yourself that 3 years of separation erased what we built. But those boys in your kitchen have my blood, my eyes, and my last name, whether you acknowledge it or not. I gave them my last name. They're Turner, not Colombo. On what documents? Their birth certificates list father as unknown. Their social security cards were obtained with fraudulent information. Medically, they have half a genetic history missing. His voice hardened slightly. You have denied them access to family medical records, to knowledge of their heritage, to an entire side of their family that would love them. Guilt twisted in Sophia's chest. She had thought about that over the years, about what information she was withholding, about whether she had the right to make that choice. What do you want from me? She asked quietly. Time. Access. The opportunity to prove that I can be the father they deserve. Anthony's expression softened. I am not asking to take them from you. I am asking to be included in their lives. Starting today. From the kitchen came a crash, and Mateo's voice. Oops! Sophia hurried out to find chocolate milk spreading across the table. Both boys looked guilty. She grabbed paper towels, cleaning automatically while her mind spun. Anthony appeared in the doorway. May I? Before she could respond, he was kneeling beside the table with more paper towels, showing Mateo how to wipe in smooth strokes instead of spreading the mess. My grandmother used to say that spills happen, Anthony said conversationally. The important thing is learning to clean them properly. You have a grandma? Mateo asked. I had a grandmother. She passed away when I was young. But she taught me many things. Luca spoke for the first time, his quiet voice cutting through the chatter. Where's your mama and papa? Anthony paused in his cleaning. When he answered, his voice carried genuine emotion. My mother died when I was 7. My father was not a good man, so my grandmother raised me. Our mama raises us, Luca said simply. We don't have a papa. The words hung in the air. Sophia saw the flash of pain cross Anthony's face before he controlled it. Would you like to have a papa? Anthony asked gently. Both boys looked at Sophia. She felt trapped, cornered by the weight of their innocent expectation. That's something we need to talk about, she managed. Why don't you two go play in your room for a bit? But the pastries, Mateo protested. After you play for 10 minutes. Go on. The boys scampered off. Sophia sank into one of the kitchen chairs, exhausted, and it wasn't even 11 in the morning. Anthony sat across from her at the small table. I handled that poorly. I apologize. You handled it honestly. Sophia rubbed her temples. I don't know how to do this. Neither do I. But we learned together. Over the next hour, they talked through logistics. Anthony wanted to visit daily for the next week. Short visits, an hour or two, just to build familiarity, then gradually extend the time. He had rented a furnished apartment in Portland, planning to stay indefinitely. You're not going back to New York? Not while my sons are here. He said it simply, as if uprooting his entire life was obvious. Eventually, I hope we can discuss a more permanent arrangement. But for now, I meet them where they are. The boys returned, and Anthony produced the pastries with appropriate ceremony. Watching him interact with Luca and Mateo was surreal. He answered their random questions with patience, showed Mateo how to fold a napkin into different shapes, asked Luca about the drawings on the refrigerator, and actually listened to the long, rambling explanation of who each stick figure represented. When noon arrived and Anthony prepared to leave, Mateo hugged his leg spontaneously. Will you come back tomorrow? Anthony looked at Sophia, asking permission silently. She nodded, defeated and relieved simultaneously. Yes. Tomorrow I will come back. We can read books if you would like. I like books, Mateo declared. Luca remained quiet, but watched Anthony with less wariness than before. At the door, Anthony paused. Thank you for allowing this. I didn't really have a choice. You always have a choice. You chose to let me in rather than fight. That matters. He left, and Sophia closed the door, leaning against it with shaking hands. The next day, Anthony returned with 3 children's books. Italian fairy tales with English translations and beautiful illustrations. He read them with different voices for each character, making Mateo giggle and even pulling a smile from serious Luca. The third day, he brought ingredients and taught them to make simple pasta dough. Flour ended up everywhere, but the boys were delighted by the squishy texture and the way Anthony showed them to press their handprints into the flattened dough. By the fourth day, Matteo ran to the door when the knock came. "Anthony's here." Sophia watched from the kitchen as the man she had fled from 3 years ago sat cross-legged on her living room floor, building block towers with their sons. He wore jeans and a casual shirt, hair slightly mussed, laughing when Matteo deliberately knocked the tower down. The domesticity of it was disorienting. This was not the man she had seen execute someone. This was not the feared mafia boss who controlled empires. This was just a father, learning his children, making up for lost time with desperate focus. On the fifth evening, after the boys were in bed, Anthony lingered by the door. "There is something you should know," he said quietly. "About your family." Sophia tensed. "What about them?" "I have been supporting them financially for the past 3 years." He said it without defensiveness. "Your father's auto repair shop was struggling. I bought the building, reduced his rent to sustainable levels, and directed business his way through my connections. Your sister Ashley received a scholarship to finish her degree. I established it through a shell corporation." Sophia stared at him. "You've been manipulating my family? I have been caring for the people you love because you could not be there to do it yourself." His tone sharpened slightly. "Your father is healthy and stable. Ashley graduated with honors, and now works as a teacher in Syracuse. They have financial security they would not have otherwise. You had no right. I had every right. They are my family too, whether you acknowledge it or not. Your father's debt was the catalyst for our marriage. I ensured he would never struggle with debt again. Your sister's education was interrupted because of family financial crisis. I ensured she could complete it." Sophia's hands shook with conflicting emotions. Anger that he had interfered, gratitude that her family was safe, resentment that he had given them what she could not. "Did they know?" she asked. "Did they know the money came from you?" "No. Everything was arranged through intermediaries and legitimate channels." Anthony's eyes held hers. "I did not do this for recognition. I did it because I knew you worried about them. I could not give you peace directly, so I gave it indirectly." Something cracked in Sophia's carefully maintained defenses. For 3 years, she had carried guilt about leaving her family without support, about choosing to protect her unborn children over staying close to her father and sister. And all that time, Anthony had been quietly ensuring they were cared for. "Why?" The word came out broken. "Because I love you." He said it simply, devastatingly. "Because even when you ran, even when you took my children and disappeared, I never stopped loving you. I was angry. I was hurt. But I never stopped wanting you safe and happy. And I knew you could not be happy if your family suffered." Tears burned Sophia's eyes. "You can't just say things like that. Why not?" "It is true." Anthony reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his hand cupped her cheek with heartbreaking gentleness. "I have made many mistakes, Sophia. I have hurt people. I have done things I cannot undo. But loving you was never a mistake. Loving our sons is not a mistake. And I will spend however long it takes proving that I can be what you need." His thumb brushed away a tear that escaped. The touch was familiar and foreign all at once. 3 years since he had touched her. 3 years since she had let anyone this close. "I don't know if I can trust you again," she whispered. "Then I will earn it back, day by day, visit by visit." His dark eyes were sincere. "I am not going anywhere, darling. Not this time." The moment stretched between them, heavy with history and possibility. Then Luca called out from the bedroom, breaking the spell. Sophia stepped back, wiping her eyes. "I should check on him." "Of course." Anthony moved toward the door. "Same time tomorrow?" "Yes." He paused at the threshold. "They are wonderful boys, Sophia. You have done an incredible job raising them alone. I hope someday you will let me help carry that weight." After he left, Sophia stood in her quiet living room surrounded by evidence of his presence. Italian books on the coffee table. Flour still dusting the kitchen counter. The faint scent of his cologne lingering in the air. And for the first time in 3 years, She wondered if running had been the right choice after all. The photograph arrived on a Tuesday morning, slipped under Sophia's apartment door while she was making breakfast. Plain white envelope with no markings. Inside, a single picture of Luca and Matteo at Little Sprouts daycare, taken through the fence during outdoor playtime. The angle suggested someone standing across the street with a telephoto lens. Sophia's hands trembled as she turned the photo over. 3 words written in block letters. Beautiful boys. Fragile. Her stomach twisted violently. She shoved the photo into her purse before the twins could see, forcing brightness into her voice as she served their oatmeal. "Mama, you okay?" Luca asked with his unsettling perceptiveness. "Fine, baby. Just thinking about work." But she was not fine. Someone was watching her children. Someone wanted her to know they were watching. The rational thing would be to call Anthony immediately. He had given her his number, told her to reach out if anything felt wrong. And if someone was testing her, a sudden swarm of Anthony's security around the daycare would only confirm the twins were the pressure point. But Sophia had spent 3 years being self-sufficient. 3 years proving she could handle everything alone. Calling him felt like admitting defeat, like confirming she needed him. Besides, it was probably nothing. Maybe a photographer doing a project. Maybe someone with the wrong apartment. Portland was weird enough that random, unsettling things happened without sinister explanation. Still, the note was deliberate enough to keep her scanning every face. She dropped the boys at daycare, scanning the street for unfamiliar vehicles or people. Everything looked normal. Parents hurrying to drop off kids before work. Traffic moving steadily. Gray Portland sky threatening rain that would probably hold off until evening. At the bookstore, Sophia threw herself into work. Restocking shelves, helping customers, processing orders. Anything to avoid thinking about the photograph burning a hole in her purse. The second message arrived via text that afternoon. Unknown number. Your sons laugh like their father. Matteo is louder. Luca is more careful. Just like Anthony. Sophia nearly dropped her phone. Whoever sent this knew about Anthony. Knew the connection. This was not random. Her fingers hovered over Anthony's contact. But what would she say? That someone sent creepy messages? He would overreact, mobilize his entire security apparatus, turn her quiet life into a circus of bodyguards and surveillance. She could handle this. She could move again if necessary. Change cities, change names, start over somewhere else. Wyoming, maybe. Montana. Somewhere small and remote, where people from Anthony's world would never think to look. That night, after tucking the boys into bed, Sophia researched rural towns with good schools and low costs of living, made lists of places she could work remotely, jobs that did not require extensive background checks, started mentally calculating how much money she needed to save before running again. The third photograph arrived Thursday morning. This time, it showed Sophia herself leaving Storybook Corner at closing time. Taken from inside a parked car, she could see the reflection of the photographer in the bookstore window. A man in a dark jacket, face obscured by the camera. The message on the back. We know where you live. We know your routine. We could reach them anytime. Terror flooded through her so completely that Sophia had to sit down on her apartment floor to breathe. This was real. This was targeted. Someone was threatening her children, and she could not handle it alone. But still, she hesitated. Anthony was supposed to visit at 10. She would tell him then. In person, where she could control the conversation and set boundaries about his response. Except Friday morning brought something worse. Sophia woke at 6 to use the bathroom. Stepping into the hallway, she noticed something by the front door. An envelope, larger than the previous ones. It must have been slid under the door during the night while they all slept. With shaking hands, she opened it. The photograph showed Luca and Matteo asleep in their bedroom, taken from outside their window, through the gap in the curtains. Sophia always left open, because Luca was afraid of complete darkness. Both boys were visible in their twin beds, peaceful and vulnerable. Sophia's knees gave out. She sat hard on the floor, hand pressed to her mouth to muffle the sob that threatened to escape. Someone had been outside their apartment in the middle of the night, had stood at her son's bedroom window, had photographed them sleeping. The note was longer this time. You took something precious from Anthony Colombo. He will understand what it feels like when we take something precious from him, unless arrangements can be made. Instructions coming soon. Sophia grabbed her phone with trembling fingers and called Anthony. He answered on the first ring, voice alert despite the early hour. Sophia? What happened? Someone's been watching us. The words tumbled out. Sending photographs. They were outside the boys' window last night. They took pictures of them sleeping. Anthony, I need help. I need you to protect them. I am on my way. Do not leave the apartment. Do not open the door for anyone except me. His voice was ice and fury. Keep the boys inside. I will be there in 8 minutes. He arrived in 6. Sophia opened the door to find him flanked by 2 large men in dark suits. Anthony's expression was controlled rage, the kind of dangerous calm that preceded violence. Show me everything. Sophia handed him the 3 photographs and her phone with the text messages. He examined each one with clinical precision, jaw tightening with each image. When he reached the photo of the sleeping boys, something dark and murderous crossed his face. Dmitri, he said quietly to one of the men. Russian? The man nodded. Text syntax matches Bratva patterns. Surveillance quality suggests professional operation. Anthony pulled out his phone, typed rapidly. I am mobilizing a security team. 2 men outside this building immediately. 2 more at the daycare. Full surveillance review of the neighborhood to identify the photographer's vehicle and location. Wait. Sophia stepped forward. I don't want armed guards following my children around. That will terrify them. They will be discreet. Anthony's eyes met hers, but non-negotiable. Someone is actively threatening our sons. That ends now. Who would do this? People who want to hurt me by targeting what I love. He said it matter-of-factly, as if discussing weather. I have enemies, Sophia. I thought by leaving that world behind, I removed the target from my family. I was wrong. One of the guards spoke quietly into an earpiece, then addressed Anthony. Boss, we have a hit on the vehicle. Black sedan, Oregon plates, registered to a rental company. Rented 3 days ago by someone using a fake ID. Find it, and find who is driving it. The man nodded and left. Anthony turned back to Sophia. I need you to pack bags for yourself and the boys. Enough for 2 weeks. What? Why? Because you cannot stay here. This location is compromised. I have a secure property in the Cascade Mountains, 2 hours from Portland. We leave today. Sophia's first instinct was to argue, to refuse, to maintain her independence. But looking at the photograph of her sleeping children, she knew pride was a luxury she could not afford. Okay. The word came out small. Okay, we'll go. Thank you for helping us. Anthony's expression softened slightly. You do not need to thank me for protecting my family. This is what fathers do. The boys woke up confused by the sudden activity. Sophia explained they were going on a surprise trip to a cabin in the mountains. Matteo was excited. Luca watched Anthony and the unfamiliar men with wary eyes. Is this because of the bad people? Luca asked quietly, while Sophia packed his clothes. Her blood went cold. What bad people, baby? The man by our window 2 nights ago. I saw him, but I was scared to get up. Sophia pulled Luca close, heart hammering. You saw him? Why didn't you tell me? I thought maybe I dreamed it. His small voice was uncertain, but then he was there again last night. Anthony appeared in the doorway, having heard everything. He knelt beside Luca with careful gentleness. You are a very brave boy to tell us this, and very smart to remember details. The bad people will not be able to find you where we are going, I promise. Are you going to stop them? Luca asked. Yes. Anthony's voice carried absolute certainty. I am going to make sure they never scare you or your brother again. Within an hour, they were packed into Anthony's SUV. Sophia sat in the back between the boys' car seats while Anthony drove. 2 additional vehicles followed, carrying his security team. As Portland disappeared behind them and the landscape shifted to dense forests and mountain roads, Sophia finally allowed herself to acknowledge what she had been denying. Running had solved nothing. 3 years of hiding, of building a new life, of trying to protect her sons alone. And the moment someone truly dangerous targeted them, she had been powerless. Anthony glanced at her in the rearview mirror. You are thinking very loudly. I was wrong. The admission hurt. I thought if I took them far enough away, changed our names, started over, we would be safe. But they will always be targets because of who their father is. Not because of who I am. Because of who I was. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. The enemies I made before I met you do not care that I have changed. They only care about leverage. So what do? We neutralize the threat permanently. And we do it together. Not with you trying to handle everything alone because you are too stubborn to ask for help. Sophia flinched at the accuracy. I'm used to taking care of things myself. I know. It is one of the things I love about you. Your strength, your independence, your fierce protection of our sons. Anthony's eyes met hers in the mirror. But strength is also knowing when to accept help. Pride is not worth our children's safety. He was right. She hated that he was right, but he was. I'm sorry, Sophia said quietly. I should have called you the moment I got the first photograph. I just didn't want to need you. Needing someone is not weakness. It is trust. His voice softened. And I know I have not given you much reason to trust me, but I am asking you to try. For Luca and Matteo. If not for yourself. The mountain house appeared after 2 hours of winding roads through increasingly remote forest. It was larger than Sophia expected, but still felt intimate. Modern architecture with enormous windows overlooking a valley. Solar panels on the roof. A circular driveway where the security vehicles parked. This is yours? Sophia asked as they unloaded bags. I bought it 2 years ago. Somewhere to disappear when New York became too loud. Anthony lifted a sleeping Matteo from his car seat with surprising gentleness. Now it serves a more important purpose. Inside, the house was beautiful. Open floor plan with a massive stone fireplace. Kitchen with professional appliances. Bedrooms upstairs with views of the forest. The boys would love it here once they woke up enough to explore. One of the security men approached Anthony. Perimeter is secure. Motion sensors active. We identified the Bratva operative through facial recognition. Dmitry Volkov sent him personally. Anthony's expression went cold. Volkov wants a war. He will get one. Who is Dmitry Volkov? Sophia asked after the guard left. A man who used to report to me before I divested from territorial operations. Anthony's voice was hard. When I sold my interests and left that world, other families moved to fill the power vacuum. Dmitry believes I still have influence he can exploit. He is using you and the boys as leverage to force me back into the game. Will it work? No. Anthony turned to face her fully. But I will make him regret threatening my family. The certainty in his voice was both comforting and terrifying. This was the man she had run from 3 years ago. The one capable of cold violence and strategic cruelty. But now that violence was directed at protecting her sons, and she could not bring herself to condemn it. What happens next? She asked. Next, I make arrangements with Dmitry. He wants something. I will give him something, but not what he expects. Anthony moved closer. And you stay here with Luca and Matteo where nothing can touch you. The security team will handle everything. You just focus on keeping the boys calm and safe. Sophia nodded, exhausted and grateful, and still processing everything. Anthony? Yes? Thank you. For coming when I called. For not judging me for waiting too long. For just helping without making me beg. He stepped close enough that she could feel the warmth of him. I told you before. You do not beg. You do not grovel. You are the mother of my children and the woman I love. Protecting you is not a favor. It is who I am. That night, after settling the boys into the upstairs bedroom they would share, Sophia stood at the enormous windows watching darkness settle over the mountains. Anthony joined her, 2 glasses of wine in hand. To survival, he said, offering 1 glass. To family, Sophia countered. They drank in comfortable silence, and for the first time since the photographs started arriving, Sophia felt something close to safe. The mountain house settled into an unexpected rhythm over the first 3 days. Security remained outside, barely visible shadows patrolling the perimeter. Inside, it was just the 4 of them. No housekeepers, no staff, no interruptions from the outside world. Sophia woke the first morning to sounds from downstairs. Coffee brewing. Something sizzling in a pan, She pulled on a sweater and found Anthony in the kitchen, barefoot in jeans and a t-shirt, cooking breakfast while both boys sat at the counter watching with rapt attention. "And this is how you know the eggs are ready," Anthony was explaining to Matteo. "See how the edges turn white but the center is still soft? That is perfect. I want to try." Matteo bounced on his stool. "Tomorrow you can help crack the eggs. Today you observe and learn." Luca noticed Sophia first. "Mama, Anthony is making food." "I can see that." She moved into the kitchen, struck by the domesticity of the scene. "I didn't know you cooked." My grandmother insisted. She said a man who cannot feed himself is not truly independent. Anthony plated scrambled eggs with fresh herbs, sliced tomatoes, and crusty bread he must have brought from Portland. "I hope you are hungry." They ate together at the large dining table. Morning light streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the forest beyond. Matteo chattered about everything he could see outside. Luca ate quietly, occasionally stealing glances at Anthony like he was solving a puzzle. After breakfast, Anthony suggested they make fresh pasta for dinner. Sophia started to decline, thinking about the mess, but he was already pulling out ingredients, and both boys were vibrating with excitement. "Cooking is about more than food," Anthony said, measuring flour into a large bowl. "It is about patience, precision, and tradition. My grandmother taught me when I was younger than you two." "What was her name?" Luca asked. "Rosa. She had hands that always smelled like basil, and a voice that could make you confess anything." Anthony's expression softened with memory. "She came from Sicily with nothing but recipes and determination." "Where's Sicily?" Matteo demanded. "An island in Italy. Very beautiful. Maybe someday I will take you there." Sophia watched Anthony guide small hands through the process of mixing flour and eggs, kneading dough until it reached the right consistency. He was patient when Matteo got distracted, encouraging when Luca hesitated, afraid of making mistakes. "There is no wrong way to learn," Anthony told Luca gently. "Only practice that makes you better." By the time they finished, the kitchen was dusted with flour and everyone was laughing. The dough rested under a cloth while Anthony cleaned up, refusing Sophia's help. "You have done everything alone for 3 years, he said when she protested. "Let me do this." That afternoon, Matteo threw a spectacular tantrum when Sophia said he could not have a third cookie. He screamed, threw himself on the floor, kicked his feet with impressive fury. Sophia felt her patience fraying. 3 years of single parenting meant she had strategies for tantrums, but exhaustion made everything harder. She started to intervene when Anthony knelt beside Matteo. "I understand you are angry," he said calmly. "Anger is acceptable. Throwing yourself on the floor is not." "I want cookies," Matteo wailed. "I know. And sometimes we want things we cannot have. That is part of learning self-control." Anthony's voice remained steady. "When you are ready to use words instead of screaming, we can talk about having a cookie after dinner." Matteo cried harder for another minute, then slowly wound down. Anthony waited patiently beside him, not forcing anything. When Matteo finally sat up, red-faced and sniffling, Anthony offered him a tissue. "Better?" Matteo nodded miserably. "Good. Now, would you like to help me build that puzzle we saw in the living room?" The transformation was immediate. Matteo scrambled up, tantrum forgotten, racing toward the puzzle. Anthony caught Sophia's eye and shrugged. "My grandmother always said children need firmness and understanding in equal measure." "Oh, your grandmother sounds wise." "She was the wisest person I have ever known." That night, Luca woke screaming from a nightmare around 2 a.m. Sophia rushed to the boys' room, finding Luca tangled in blankets, sobbing about monsters and shadows. Matteo slept through it somehow, undisturbed. "Shh, baby, it's okay. Mama's here." Sophia gathered Luca into her arms, rocking him. "There was a bad man at the window," Luca cried. Like before, he was trying to get in. Sophia's heart clenched. The trauma from Portland was manifesting in nightmares now. Anthony appeared in the doorway, hair mussed from sleep, concern evident on his face. "What can I do?" "I don't know. He's remembering the man outside our apartment." Anthony entered slowly, sitting on the edge of Luca's bed. "May I try something?" Sophia nodded, desperate for anything that might help. "Luca," Anthony said gently, Look at me. Luca turned tear-streaked face toward him. The bad man cannot reach you here. Do you know why? Why? Because I am here. And I will never let anyone hurt you or your brother. That is a promise I make as your father. You're my papa? If you will have me, yes. And fathers protect their children always, no matter what. Luca studied him seriously. What if you're sleeping? Then the men outside who work for me are watching. And if somehow anyone got past them, your mother would stop them. And if somehow they got past her, I would wake up and stop them. Anthony's voice was absolutely certain. You are surrounded by people who love you. Monsters have no chance. But what if... Luca. Anthony leaned closer. When I was your age, I was afraid of many things. My grandmother would tell me a secret. Do you want to know what it was? Luca nodded. She said fear lives in the dark because it knows light will destroy it. So every time you feel afraid, you turn on a light. Not just a lamp, but a light inside yourself. You think about the people who love you, and that light grows so bright that fear has nowhere to hide. I don't know how to make an inside light. I will teach you. Close your eyes. Luca obeyed, still hiccuping slightly from crying. Now think about your mama. How she smells like vanilla and coffee. How she reads you stories every night. How safe you feel when she holds you. Can you picture that? Yes. Good. That is your first light. Now think about Matteo. How he makes you laugh even when you do not want to. How he shares his toys even though he loves them. How you are never truly alone. Because he is always there. Luca's breathing was slowing, evening out. That is your second light. Now think about me. I know we have not known each other very long. But I love you. I will always protect you. You are my son. And that means you are precious beyond measure. That's 3 lights. Luca murmured, sounding drowsy. 3 lights so bright that no nightmare can survive. Do you feel them? Yeah. Good. Keep them glowing. And if you ever feel scared again, you turn on those lights and remember you are loved. Within minutes, Luca was asleep again, breathing deep and peaceful. Anthony carefully tucked the blankets around him and followed Sophia out of the room. In the hallway, Sophia turned to him with tears in her eyes. How did you do that? My grandmother did it for me after my mother died. I had nightmares for years. He leaned against the wall, exhaustion evident. I never thought I would use that technique on my own children, but I am grateful I remember it. Thank you. You do not need to thank me for comforting my son. They stood in the dim hallway, the house silent around them. Sophia became acutely aware of how close they were standing, how Anthony's presence felt both familiar and charged with possibility. We should try to sleep, she said, but made no move toward her room. Sophia. His voice dropped lower. May we talk? Really talk? She nodded, following him downstairs to the living room. Anthony started a fire in the massive stone fireplace, flames casting dancing shadows across the walls. They sat on opposite ends of the long leather couch, distance preserved but barely. I need you to understand something, Anthony began, staring into the fire. The day I found your letter, the day I realized you had left, it broke something in me I did not know could break. Sophia wrapped her arms around herself, waiting. I have survived things that would destroy most men. Violence, betrayal, loss. I learned early to compartmentalize emotion, to separate what I feel from what I must do. But that morning, reading your words, knowing you were carrying my children and I had driven you away, all those walls collapsed. His hands clenched into fists on his knees. I wanted to tear apart the city looking for you. I had resources, connections, the ability to find almost anyone. But then I reread your letter. You said you could not raise our children surrounded by death, and I realized you were absolutely right. Anthony, let me finish. Please. He finally looked at her, firelight reflecting in his dark eyes. I spent 3 years transforming everything, not to manipulate you into returning, but because I needed to become someone worthy of being a father. Someone who could give our sons a life where they did not grow up witnessing executions in home offices. You changed your entire empire because of what I wrote? I changed because you forced me to see what I had become. A man who solved problems with violence. A man whose children would inherit blood-stained legacy. I did not want that for them. I did not want them to fear their father the way I feared mine. Sophia's chest tightened. You never talked about your father before, because he is not worth discussing. He was a brutal man who believed power came through fear. He would beat my mother, terrorize everyone around him, rule through intimidation. When she died, I vowed never to become him. But somewhere along the way, I did. You're nothing like that, Sophia said softly. I've watched you with Luca and Matteo. You're patient and gentle and everything a father should be, because you gave me the chance to be. Anthony shifted closer, the distance between them shrinking. When I finally found you 6 months ago, I wanted to rush in immediately, demand my rights, force my way back into your life. But I watched instead, saw how hard you worked, how well you raised them, how much they thrived under your care, and I realized that showing up before I was truly ready would be selfish. So you waited. I waited until I could offer you safety and stability and a version of myself that deserved another chance. His voice roughened with emotion. I waited because I love you, Sophia. I have loved you since you agreed to that arranged marriage and then refused to be treated like property. I loved you when you challenged me, when you made me laugh, when you showed me that strength and gentleness could coexist. Tears streamed down Sophia's face. I loved you too. That's why leaving hurt so much. Then why did you wait 3 years? Why not reach out once you were settled, once the boys were born? Because I was terrified. The confession burst out. Not of you specifically, but of your world. Of raising children who would think violence was normal. Of losing myself in a life where I was just the mafia boss's wife instead of my own person. You have never been just anything. You are brilliant and fierce and the strongest person I have ever known. I didn't feel strong. I felt trapped and scared, and so desperately in love with someone I thought I had to leave. They were inches apart now, drawn together by gravity and history and 3 years of separation. Sophia could see the flutter of Anthony's pulse in his throat, could feel the heat radiating from his body. I helped your family, Anthony said quietly. Your father's business, Ashley's education. I made sure they were cared for because I knew you worried about them. I could not give you peace directly, so I tried to give it indirectly. Fresh tears spilled over. You've been protecting everyone I love this whole time, because that is what you do when you love someone. You care for the people they care about. The space between them felt electric, charged with possibility and memory. Sophia leaned closer, drawn by instinct and need. Anthony's hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing away tears with devastating tenderness. If I pull you close right now, he murmured, there's no going back. Maybe it's already changed. They moved together, closing the final distance. But at the last second, Sophia pulled back, fear overriding desire. I can't. Not yet. I'm still trying to figure out if I can trust you again. Anthony's expression held understanding and disappointment in equal measure. Then I will wait, however long it takes. He stood, putting physical distance between them, before the temptation became too much. Try to get some rest. Tomorrow we can take the boys hiking if the weather holds. Sophia watched him climb the stairs to his own room, then sat alone by the dying fire. Her lips tingled with the kiss that almost happened. Her heart ached with feelings she had tried to bury for 3 years. The next morning, Matteo ran into the kitchen where Sophia was attempting coffee and announced, "Papa is teaching us to make pancakes." Sophia froze, mug halfway to her lips. What did you just call him? Papa. That's his name, right? He's our papa and you're our mama. Luca appeared behind his brother, more hesitant. Is that okay? Can we call him that? Sophia's throat closed with emotion. She looked past the boys to where Anthony stood in the kitchen doorway, his expression vulnerable in a way she had never seen. Yes, babies. That's okay. He is your papa. The smile that broke across Anthony's face was worth every complicated feeling churning in Sophia's chest. And when both boys ran to him, wrapping small arms around his legs, he knelt down and held them like they were the most precious things in existence. Which, Sophia realized, they were. Later that afternoon, while the boys napped, Sophia found Anthony on the back deck overlooking the valley. She stood beside him, shoulders nearly touching. "They called you Papa," she said unnecessarily. "I heard. I may have cried about it for 10 minutes in my room afterward." Sophia smiled despite herself. The great Anthony Colombo, brought to tears by 3-year-olds. The only 3-year-olds who matter. He turned to face her. "Thank you for allowing that. For not correcting them. They deserve to know their father. I was wrong to keep you from them for so long. You were protecting them. I understand that now." They stood in comfortable silence, watching clouds drift across the mountain peaks. And Sophia wondered if maybe, just maybe, they could find a way forward that honored both the past and the possibilities ahead. The attack came at 3:17 in the morning. Sophia woke to the sound of something she had never heard before, but recognized instinctively. Gunfire. Distant, but unmistakable. Multiple weapons firing in controlled bursts. She bolted upright in bed, heart hammering. Before she could process what to do, her bedroom door flew open. Anthony stood there, fully dressed despite the hour, his face set in lines of cold fury. "Get the boys. Now. Do not turn on lights. Do not ask questions. Move." Sophia scrambled out of bed, running on pure adrenaline. She rushed to the twins' room where both boys were stirring, confused by the distant noise. Anthony was right behind her. "Mama?" Luca's voice was frightened. "It's okay, baby. We're going to play a game. We have to be very quiet and very fast." Matteo started to cry. Anthony scooped him up in one arm, then lifted Luca with the other. "Listen to me. Both of you. I need you to be brave right now. Can you do that for me?" Both boys nodded against his shoulders, eyes wide. "Good. Hold on tight and do not make a sound." Anthony moved with terrifying speed through the dark house, Sophia stumbling after him. More gunfire erupted outside, closer now. She heard shouting in a language she did not recognize. Russian, maybe. Anthony led them to what she had thought was a linen closet in the downstairs hallway. He pressed his palm against a panel she had never noticed. The back wall slid open, revealing a reinforced steel door with a keypad. Inside, quickly. The panic room was larger than expected. Concrete walls, dim emergency lighting, a comfortable seating area with a couch and chairs, shelves stocked with water and non-perishable food, a bank of monitors showing security camera feeds from around the property. "You stay here until I come get you." Anthony set the boys on the couch. His voice was absolutely calm, but Sophia could see the tension in every line of his body. "The door is 6 inches of reinforced steel. Nothing gets through it. Where are you going?" Sophia grabbed his arm. "To end this." "No. You stay here with us. Let your security handle it." "My security is handling it. But this is my family, my responsibility." He gripped her shoulders, forcing her to meet his eyes. "I will not hide while men threaten my sons. Do you understand?" Sophia wanted to argue, to beg him to stay safe. But she saw the truth in his face. This was who he was. Not the gentle father who made pancakes, but the warrior who protected what belonged to him. "Come back," she whispered. "Whatever happens out there, you come back to us. Always." He kissed her forehead quickly, then the top of each boy's head. "Be brave. I will return soon." The steel door closed with a heavy thunk. A series of locks engaged automatically. Sophia heard Anthony's footsteps retreating down the hallway. Then there was only silence and the terrified breathing of her children. Sophia pulled both boys into her lap on the couch, wrapping arms around them. "It's okay. Papa is going to make sure we're safe." "Why are there bad people?" Luca asked, voice trembling. "Because some people make wrong choices, but Papa is going to stop them." The monitors showed chaos outside. Men in dark tactical gear moving through the forest, muzzle flashes lighting up the darkness. Anthony's security team had taken defensive positions around the house perimeter. Sophia counted at least 6 attackers, maybe more beyond camera range. On one screen, she saw Anthony emerge from the house. He moved to a covered position behind a stone wall, speaking rapidly into a phone. Even through grainy security footage, she could see the transformation. This was not the man who read bedtime stories. This was a commander, cold and precise, directing his forces with surgical efficiency. The boys mercifully did not understand what they were seeing on the monitors. Matteo had his face buried in Sophia's shoulder. Luca watched with wide eyes, but said nothing. The firefight lasted 17 minutes that felt like 17 hours. Sophia watched Anthony coordinate his team, calling out positions and orders. Watched attackers fall back, regroup, press forward again. Watched her children's father operate in a world she had tried to protect them from. Then one attacker broke through the perimeter, heading straight for the house. Anthony moved to intercept, weapon raised. The attacker fired first. Anthony went down. Sophia's scream was silent, trapped in her throat so she would not terrify the boys. She watched the monitor with horror as Anthony lay motionless for 3 eternal seconds. Then he moved, rolled, returned fire with brutal accuracy. The attacker dropped. Anthony stood slowly, left hand pressed to his right shoulder. Even through the camera, Sophia could see dark wetness spreading across his shirt. Blood. "Mama? Is Papa hurt?" Luca had seen it too. "I don't know, baby." "I hope not." The remaining attackers were retreating now, overpowered by Anthony's security team. One man was dragged back toward the house, hands zip-tied behind him. The others disappeared into the forest, pursued by armed guards. 10 minutes later, the monitors showed the situation stabilizing. 20 minutes after that, the steel door locks began disengaging. Anthony appeared in the doorway. His shirt was torn and blood-soaked on the right side. His face was pale but composed. He looked at Sophia and the boys with visible relief. "It is over. They are gone." Sophia set the boys down and crossed to him in 3 steps, hands hovering over the wound. "You're bleeding. Flesh wound. The bullet grazed my shoulder. I am fine." "You are not fine. Sit down." The boys ran to him despite the blood, wrapping small arms around his legs. Anthony winced but did not push them away. "Did you stop the bad people?" Matteo asked. "Yes. They will not come back." "Because you're strong," Luca said with certainty. "Because I love you. Love makes us stronger than we know." Sophia got the boys settled on the couch with blankets, both of them exhausted and crashing from adrenaline. They fell asleep within minutes, curled together like puppies. Then she turned to Anthony. "Shirt off. Now." He obeyed, carefully pulling the ruined fabric over his head. The wound was exactly as he described, a deep graze across the meat of his shoulder, still bleeding sluggishly. Painful, but not life-threatening. Sophia found the first aid kit Anthony had shown her when they first arrived. Her hands shook as she cleaned the wound with antiseptic, trying to be gentle despite her terror and anger. "You should have stayed in here with us," she said, voice breaking. "I should have protected my family. I did what was necessary. You got shot. I have been shot before. This is nothing." Sophia pressed gauze to the wound harder than necessary. Anthony hissed in pain but did not complain. "Do not minimize this," she snapped. "You could have died out there. You could have left our sons without a father they just found. You could have, but I did not." He caught her wrist gently, stilling her shaking hands. "I am here, injured but alive. Our sons are safe. That is all that matters." Tears spilled down Sophia's cheeks. "I watched you on those monitors, saw you go down. For those few seconds, I thought you were dead, and I realized I cannot lose you again. Sophia, no, let me say this." She kept her hands busy with the bandage, unable to meet his eyes. "I told myself for 3 years that I ran to protect the boys, that I left because of your world, your violence, your danger. But that was only part of the truth. What was the other part? I was terrified of how much I loved you." The confession came out raw and honest. I had never felt that way about anyone, so completely consumed by another person, and when I saw what you were capable of, when I witnessed the darkness in your world, I panicked, because I knew that loving you meant accepting all of you, the gentle man who cooked pasta, and the ruthless one who killed without hesitation. Anthony was very still, barely breathing. "I was not strong enough then," Sophia continued. "I thought if I removed myself from your world, I could remove the conflict, but it followed us anyway. Because our sons carry your blood, your legacy, whether I run or not. So you regret them." "What? No." She finally looked up, meeting his dark eyes. I have never regretted them for a single second. They are the best thing in my life. But tonight, watching you risk everything to protect us, I realized something. You changed your entire world trying to be worthy of us. You dismantled an empire, walked away from power, spent 3 years becoming someone different. All because I asked you to. Because you were right to ask. Maybe, but I never asked the important question. Sophia's voice dropped to a whisper. Did you want to change? Or did you only do it to get us back? Anthony reached up with his good arm, cupping her face with his hand. I changed because you showed me who I was becoming. A man my sons would fear. A man you could not love. I changed because I wanted to be better. Not just for you, but for myself. For the legacy I leave behind. Even if I had never come back? Even then. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. Transforming my life was not a manipulation tactic. It was an awakening. You leaving forced me to confront truths I had avoided. That power without purpose is emptiness. That legacy built on fear is worthless. That the only thing that truly matters is family. Sophia pressed her forehead to his, careful of his injured shoulder. I never stopped loving you. Not for 1 day in 3 years. I was just too afraid to admit it. And now? Now I am tired of being afraid. Tired of running. Tired of pretending I can protect our sons from everything when the safest place for them is with both their parents united. Anthony's breath caught. What are you saying? I am saying that when this is over, when the threat is eliminated, I want us to try again. Really try. Not because of an arrangement or obligation, but because I choose you. I choose us. Sophia. Her name was a prayer and a promise. I have waited 3 years to hear those words. I am sorry it took so long. Do not apologize. You needed time. I would have waited decades if necessary. They stayed like that. Foreheads pressed together, breathing the same air. Sophia's hands rested on his chest, feeling his heartbeat strong and steady beneath her palm. The man you captured, she said eventually. What happens to him? Anthony's expression hardened. He will tell me everything. Who sent him? How they found us? What Dmitry Volkov wants? Then I will negotiate. Negotiate what? Peace. Permanent, ironclad peace. He pulled back slightly to look at her properly. I am going to make a deal with the 5 families. Every major organization in New York and the surrounding territories. I will formally renounce all my former holdings, all territories, all claims to power. In exchange, they guarantee in writing that my family is untouchable. Forever. Will they agree to that? They will if I offer enough. I still have leverage, connections, information. I will trade everything to ensure you and our sons can live without looking over your shoulders. That will cost you everything you built. I do not care. His voice was absolutely certain. Let them have the territories, the money, the influence. I will keep my family. That is the only empire that matters. Sophia kissed him then, soft and gentle and full of 3 years of longing. Anthony responded carefully, mindful of his injury, but with intensity that spoke of his own desperate need. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Sophia whispered against his lips, "You are bleeding on my shirt." Apologies. Bullet wounds are inconsiderate that way. She laughed despite everything, despite the chaos and fear and uncertainty. Let me finish bandaging you properly before you bleed out and ruin this moment. Heaven forbid I ruin our reconciliation with something as mundane as blood loss. Sophia secured the gauze with medical tape, then wrapped his shoulder with proper bandaging. Anthony watched her work with an expression of such tenderness it made her chest ache. I dreamed of you every night, he said quietly. For 3 years, wondered where you were, if you were safe, if the children looked like me. The not knowing was worse than any physical pain. I dreamed of you too. Hated myself for it. Tried to convince myself you were a monster I should forget. But my heart knew better. What did your heart know? That you were mine. That we belonged together. That running solved nothing. She tied off the bandage. There. That should hold until we can get you proper medical attention. Medical attention can wait. My sons are sleeping 10 feet away and the woman I love just told me she wants to try again. Medical attention is very low priority. Sophia smiled despite her tears. You are impossible. I am in love. There is a difference. Dawn was breaking outside the windows of the mountain house. Soft gray light filtering through the forest. The boys slept peacefully on the couch, unaware their world had just shifted on its axis again. Anthony pulled Sophia close with his good arm, mindful of his injury. She rested her head on his uninjured shoulder, breathing in the scent of him beneath the copper smell of blood. What happens now? She asked. Now I make calls. Arrange meetings. Negotiate our freedom. His voice was steady, determined. Within a week, this will be over. Volkov will understand that threatening my family was the worst mistake of his miserable life. The 5 families will agree to my terms, and we will finally be safe. You sound very confident. I am. He pressed a kiss to the top of her head. Because I have everything to fight for, and nothing left to lose. That makes me the most dangerous person in any negotiation. Sophia believed him. This was the man who had transformed an entire criminal empire because she asked. The man who had taken a bullet and kept fighting. The man who loved their son so fiercely he would trade kingdoms for their safety. I love you, she said. Simple. True. No qualifications. I love you too. Always have. Always will. They stayed like that as dawn fully broke, wrapped in each other, watching their sleeping children, planning a future that finally felt possible. 2 months passed in careful reconstruction. The attack at the mountain house ended exactly as Anthony promised. The captured operative talked within hours, revealing everything about Dmitry Volkov's plan. Anthony made calls, arranged meetings, negotiated with a precision that reminded Sophia why he had been so feared in his former life. The deal was struck on a rainy Tuesday in a neutral location in Seattle. Representatives from 5 major families gathered. Anthony offered territorial concessions worth hundreds of millions, information on offshore accounts, connections to political figures, everything he had accumulated over decades. In exchange, one ironclad guarantee signed by every family head. Sophia Turner and the Colombo twins were untouchable. Forever. Dmitry Volkov tried to object, to argue he deserved compensation for Anthony's withdrawal from their world. Anthony's response was delivered in a voice Sophia heard through the phone he had left on speaker. You sent men to terrorize my family. You photographed my sleeping children. You forced me to remember exactly who I can become when properly motivated. A pause. Take the territories I am offering and disappear. Or refuse, and discover what happens when I stop being civilized. Volkov took the deal. Now, Sophia stood in the living room of their new house in Westchester, watching moving trucks unload furniture. The house was nothing like Anthony's old Manhattan penthouse. This was a home. 4 bedrooms, a backyard with swings already installed, large kitchen with space for family meals, neutral colors, warm lighting, safety without ostentation. Mama, can we go see our new room? Mateo tugged her hand impatiently. In a minute, baby. Let the movers finish. Luca stood beside her more quietly, taking everything in with his usual careful observation. Is this where we live now? Forever? Yes, sweetheart. This is home. With Papa? With Papa. Anthony appeared from the kitchen where he had been directing furniture placement. His shoulder had healed cleanly over the past 2 months, leaving only a thin scar. He scooped up Mateo with his good arm. Ready to see your room? I had it painted blue like you wanted. Blue is the best color, Mateo declared. What about you, Luca? Do you like your side? Sophia had insisted the twins have their own space as they got older, but Luca had been anxious about sleeping separately from his brother. The compromise was a large room with 2 distinct areas, each boy's space reflecting his personality but still together. Can I see? Luca asked shyly. Absolutely. Come. Sophia followed them upstairs, heart full watching Anthony show the boys their room. One side had bookshelves already loaded with Luca's favorites. The other had a space for Mateo's growing collection of toy cars. Both had comfortable beds, desks for when they started school, and a large window overlooking the backyard. This is ours, Luca breathed, eyes wide. All yours. Papa helped me pick everything out. The boys explored with mounting excitement, examining every corner. Sophia leaned against the doorframe, watching her family with contentment she had not felt in years. Anthony joined her, sliding an arm around her waist. They seem happy. They are. We all are. Even you? Especially me. The move into the Westchester house took a week. Sophia enrolled the boys in Little Scholars Academy, a private bilingual school 15 minutes away. They would start in 2 weeks, giving everyone time to adjust. Anthony kept his promise about separating work from family. His office was downtown, 45 minutes away. He left each morning after breakfast and returned by 6 every evening, unless Sophia explicitly said she was okay with him staying later. Weekends were sacred, dedicated entirely to family. Sophia spent her days setting up the house and planning something she had dreamed about for years. A bookstore. Her own small business where she could curate children's literature and create community reading programs. "I found a space," she told Anthony over dinner one night. The boys were focused on their spaghetti, sauce covering their faces. "It is tiny, in a strip mall near the school, but it has good light and reasonable rent. Buy the building," Anthony said simply. "What? No. I just want to rent the space. Buy the building. I will arrange financing. Then you control everything, no landlord issues, and you can expand when ready." "Anthony, that is too much. It is an investment in your dream. Let me do this." Sophia wanted to argue, to maintain independence, but she was learning to accept help without seeing it as weakness. "Okay, thank you. When do you want to open? Maybe 3 months? I need to build inventory, design the space, hire help. I know contractors who can expedite the work, and I have connections with publishers who can get you wholesale pricing on stock." She raised an eyebrow. "Connections with children's book publishers? I am a man of many resources." He grinned. "Also, I may have spent the past month researching the independent bookstore industry because I knew you would want to do this eventually." Her chest tightened with emotion. "You researched bookstores for me? I research everything that matters to you. It is how I show love." 6 weeks after moving to Westchester, Anthony suggested they host dinner. Not business associates or casual acquaintances. Family. "Your father and Ashley," he said while they prepared lunch. "I think it is time they met their grandchildren properly. And time for you to reconnect face to face." Sophia's hands stilled on the sandwich she was making. She had talked to Ashley regularly since returning to New York, but seeing her family in person felt huge. "I do not know if I am ready. You are ready, and the boys deserve to know their grandfather and aunt. What if my father judges me for running, for keeping the twins secret? Then I will remind him that his gambling debt created this situation, and he has no room to judge anyone." Anthony's voice was firm. "But I do not think he will. From what Ashley tells me, he has spent 3 years regretting how things happened." Sophia looked at him. "You talk to Ashley?" "Occasionally. She wanted updates on you and the boys once I found you. I told her limited information to respect your privacy. But yes, we have spoken." Of course he had. Anthony managed every detail, protected everyone he loved, thought 10 steps ahead constantly. "Okay," Sophia said. "Let us do dinner. Here, next weekend. I will arrange everything." The following Saturday, Sophia was a bundle of nervous energy. She changed outfits 3 times, cleaned the already clean house twice, made enough food to feed 20 people even though only 4 were coming. "They will love you," Anthony assured her, catching her as she obsessively straightened couch pillows. "You are their daughter and sister. Nothing changes that. Everything has changed. I left for 3 years, had children they knew nothing about, built a life without them. Because you were protecting yourself and your sons. They will understand." The doorbell rang at exactly 6. Sophia froze. Anthony squeezed her hand once, then went to answer. Her father looked older. Gray hair, deeper lines around his eyes, shoulders slightly stooped, but his face broke into an expression of pure joy when he saw her. "Sophia," his voice cracked. "My girl." She burst into tears and ran to him. He held her tightly, both of them crying, 3 years of separation dissolving in one embrace. "I am so sorry," he kept saying. "So sorry for everything." "I know, Dad. It is okay." Ashley waited behind their father, tears streaming down her own face. When Sophia finally pulled away from their dad, Ashley grabbed her in a fierce hug. "You are such an idiot," Ashley said. laughing through her tears. 3 years and you could not even send a photo? I was scared. I did not want to put you in danger. Well, you are stuck with me now. I am not letting you disappear again. The twins watched from behind Anthony, uncertain about the crying adults. Sophia wiped her face and knelt down. Boys, come meet your grandfather and your Aunt Ashley. Matteo approached boldly as always. Hi, I am Matteo. That is Luca. He is shy, but I am not. Sophia's father laughed, a sound she had not heard in years. He lowered himself carefully to the boy's level. It is very nice to meet you both. You look just like your father. Everyone says that, Matteo agreed. But Mama says we have her smile. You definitely have her smile. Her father looked up at Sophia with shining eyes. They are beautiful, sweetheart. Absolutely beautiful. Ashley was already kneeling beside Luca, who seemed fascinated by her colorful scarf. I am your Aunt Ashley. I teach 2nd grade, so I am pretty cool with kids. Want to see a magic trick? Luca nodded, and Ashley produced a quarter from behind his ear. Both boys squealed with delight. Dinner was chaotic and wonderful. The twins performed for their new audience, showing off drawings and explaining their school in elaborate detail. Sophia's father told stories about Sophia as a child that made everyone laugh. Ashley fit into the family dynamic immediately, teasing Anthony and playing with the boys like she had known them forever. After dinner, while the boys played with Ashley in the living room, Sophia found herself alone with her father in the kitchen while they cleared dishes. I need to say something, he started. What I did, forcing you into that marriage to clear my debt. It was unforgivable. Dad, please let me finish. He set down the plate he was holding. I have spent 3 years knowing I sold my daughter to save myself. I destroyed your life because I could not stop gambling. No apology will ever be enough. You did not destroy my life. Sophia glanced toward the living room where Anthony was laughing at something Ashley said. That marriage saved me in ways I did not understand at the time. How can you say that after everything? Because I love him. I love our sons. I have a life I never imagined possible. She took her father's hand. Yes, the beginning was wrong. The circumstances were terrible. But Anthony has spent years proving he deserves a second chance. I think you deserve one too. Her father's eyes filled with tears. I do not deserve your forgiveness. Maybe not, but I am giving it anyway. Because holding on to anger hurts me more than it hurts you. Because I want my children to know their grandfather. Because family is complicated and messy, and sometimes we have to choose grace over grudges. They hugged again, and Sophia felt another piece of her past settle into place. Anthony appeared in the doorway, watching with soft eyes. When Sophia's father left to rejoin the others, Anthony pulled her close. That was beautifully done. He needed to hear it. I needed to say it. Your capacity for forgiveness is one of the things I love most about you. Speaking of forgiveness. She turned in his arms to face him. I forgive you too. For everything. The violence I witnessed, the fear I felt, the world you came from. All of it. We start fresh from here. Sophia. I mean it. No more looking backward. We move forward as a family. That night, after everyone left and the boys were asleep, Anthony led Sophia to the backyard. Stars were visible despite the proximity to the city, a rare clear night. He held a small box in his hand. I did this wrong the first time, he said. An arranged marriage with paperwork and obligation. No romance, no choice. Anthony, what? He opened the box. Inside was a ring with a deep blue sapphire surrounded by small diamonds. Simple but elegant, clearly chosen with care. Sophia Turner, I am asking you to marry me again. Not because of debt or arrangement. Not because we have children who bind us. But because I love you with everything I am. Because you make me want to be a better man. Because a life without you is not a life worth living. He knelt on the grass, holding the ring up to her. Will you marry me? Choose me? Build a future with me that we both want? Sophia could barely see through her tears. Yes. 1,000 times yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, then stood and kissed her with all the passion and tenderness of 3 years apart. When they finally broke apart, both were crying and laughing simultaneously. I chose this sapphire because it reminded me of the sky the night I first told you I loved you. Anthony said. Deep and infinite and full of possibility. It is perfect. You are perfect. I am far from perfect, but I am yours. They married 6 weeks later in a small ceremony at the house. Immediate family only. Sophia's father walked her down the makeshift aisle in their backyard. Ashley stood as maid of honor. Luca and Matteo served as ring bearers, taking their duties very seriously. The ceremony was simple but meaningful. Sophia wore a cream dress, elegant but not ostentatious. Anthony wore a dark suit and could not stop smiling. When they exchanged vows, neither used traditional words. I choose you, Sophia said. Today and every day, in light and darkness, in peace and chaos. I choose us. I promise to protect you, Anthony replied. To honor you. To be worthy of the gift you have given me. I promise to be the man our sons can look up to and the husband you deserve. I promise to choose love over everything. When the officiant pronounced them married, both boys cheered loudly. Everyone laughed. Anthony kissed his wife like she was air and he was drowning. The reception was dinner and dancing in their backyard. Simple. Intimate. Perfect. 1 year later, Sophia stood in the living room of their Westchester home, hand resting on her very pregnant belly. The bookstore was thriving. The boys were excelling in school. Anthony came home every evening at 6. Life had found a rhythm that felt sustainable and joyful. Mama, when is our sister coming? Matteo asked for the 100th time. Soon, baby. Very soon. I am going to teach her to read, Luca announced seriously. That is what big brothers do. She is lucky to have you both. Anthony wrapped his arms around her from behind, hands joining hers on her belly. How are you feeling? Tired? Happy? Ready to meet her? Have you decided on a name? They had narrowed it down to 3 options, unable to commit to just one. I think Rosa, Sophia said. After your grandmother. The woman who taught you that strength and gentleness can coexist. Anthony went very still. When he spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. She would have loved you so much. I wish I could have met her. She would have said you have a good heart and strong hands. The highest compliment she gave. 2 weeks later, Rosa Elena Colombo was born at 7 pounds, 3 ounces. She had her mother's green eyes and her father's dark hair. Her brothers were immediately obsessed, arguing over who got to hold her first. Sophia watched her family gathered in the hospital room, Anthony holding their daughter with infinite care. The twins pressed close, staring at their sister with awe. Her father and Ashley cooing over the newest addition. This was everything she had run from 3 years ago. Family. Connection. A life built with the man she loved despite impossible circumstances. And she had almost lost it all because of fear. What are you thinking? Anthony asked, noticing her expression. That I am grateful I ran. Because it forced you to change. But I am more grateful that you found me. Because I cannot imagine life without this. You will never have to imagine it again. We are bound now. Forever. Forever. She agreed. Little Rosa made a small noise, and everyone laughed. The future stretched ahead. Uncertain, but filled with possibility. Sophia had learned that love was complicated, that families were messy, that sometimes the scariest choices led to the greatest rewards. She had run away pregnant with his twins. He had tracked her down and refused to let her keep running. And somehow, impossibly, they had built something beautiful from the wreckage. Not perfect, but real. And that was more than sufficient. If you enjoyed this story, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. That is how I will know you truly appreciated it. Even if you are watching on your television, grab a second to join this family of listeners who love emotional and powerful stories. Your support means everything, and it helps us bring you even more tales like this one.